Three individuals were preparing for an ice fishing expedition in Alaska. The spot they had chosen to fish was an area surrounded by lakes and in a very remote area of the state. The plan was to set up a base camp by the lake and spend the week fishing. They brought every piece of camping and fishing equipment needed for a successful trip. The base camp was set up with the best accessories this would make for a comfortable week in a very inhospitable landscape. The temperature for the week was hovering around 0 and snowstorms were expected. The first day, they made their way out on the lake, drilled holes in the ice, and began to fish. It was almost evening time when a snowstorm began to move in. Storms in this area of the state often developed quickly and could be quite severe. None of the men were familiar with this type of climate and didn't take the storm as seriously as they should. They packed their gear and started to head back to base camp. The storm intensified. In what seemed like a matter of minutes, visibility had went to 0 and they could hardly see their hand in front of them. They had to make it back to the safety of base camp and they had to get there quickly. Hustling through the snow, the men began to realize that they should have arrived at the camp by now. Something was seriously wrong. They had no visibility and no way to see if they were going in the right direction. The storm persisted and got even worse. Fear set in. How are we going to survive a night in these conditions? At the base camp, they had everything they would need to stay warm and be protected from the blizzard, but out in the open, they were totally exposed to the elements, and even worse, it was getting dark. The men had to make a decision. Do they continue to look for the camp, or do they try to make some sort of makeshift shelter for the night? They started to dig in the snow and believed the best use of their energy was to dig a hole in the snow and stay there for the night. This would at least keep them out of the harsh wind and give them some protection. Completing the structure, they climbed in for the night and barely slept at all. The next day, the storm had lessened, but was still bringing down good amounts of snow. They were amazed how much snow had fallen, and it made walking difficult. However, they had to find their base camp because another night like they just experienced could be a death sentence. The men struggled and walked all day, not seeing any familiar sights. With visibility still low, they could be close to their camp and walk right by it. The second night was far worse than the first. Hypothermia was a major concern, and the shelter they built on the second night provided some relief, but was still frigid inside. Day 3 was life or death. They had to find the camp. The weather began to clear, and the men frantically searched the surrounding area. This area of Alaska had numerous lakes, and with a covering of snow on the ground, it was hard to distinguish one from another. The weather had improved, but they still hadn't found their camp. Another night in the frozen Alaska forest was brutal and nearly killed them. On the fourth day, one of the men was walking ahead of the others when he suddenly tripped on something. It was a stake in the ground. The stake was connected to a tent, their tent. After 4 days and 3 nights, they had found their base camp and would live to tell their tale. They warmed themselves by the fire and ate like kings. One of the men was wearing a watch with a GPS tracking app. The app was connected to his phone, which he had left at their campsite. Miraculously, the phone had recorded their journey for the last 4 days. To their surprise, the tracker told a very disturbing story. The 4 days the men were lost, they were walking in a circle around the camp. In fact, they were less than a quarter mile from the camp for most of their journey. The farthest away from the camp they went was only a mile. In total, they had walked over 25 miles, searching for a camp that was only a few minutes away. 25 miles, that's nearly a marathon in 4 days. This story of determination and overcoming impossible circumstances teaches a very valuable lesson. We may be in the middle of the worst time of our life, but the answer, the rescue, the safe place, may be just around the corner. We may not see it, but it may be right on top of us. Many people would have given up just yards away from the camp, not knowing that safety was within their grasp. Those who persevere will find what they're looking for, be it a base camp in a blizzard or the answer to an important life question. Either way, keep going and know the solution may be just around the next corner.